Well, everybody, this week I want to visit with you about coaching your sales team, which is a really big subject. And Jimmy gave me the idea. He said, why don't you do some videos on coaching your sales team for sales managers and leaders to coach your sales team on the sales floor? I thought that's a great idea. It's a really big subject. And so perhaps we'll do a series of videos or a few videos over the coming months about coaching your sales team. And I thought what I would try and do is pick out some of the more challenging aspects of coaching your sales team and focus on those so that you can hone in on the things that are really most challenging when it comes to coaching your sales team. Today, I want to start with what I have found to be probably the most challenging thing in coaching my sales team. And that's when I started out in the jewelry business. I started out in the jewelry business since I was a kid, of course, a teenager selling jewelry in our family's jewelry business. As I got older, had other experiences, went to college, had other careers, and then I came back into the family business. And I took on a management role when I came back into the business and started to work my way towards ownership. At that time, everybody on staff had at least 10 to 15 years of selling and jewelry experience on me. Everybody had been at the company a minimum of like 15, 20 years. And they were all very good at their jobs. So here comes this young buck who thinks he knows a thing or two about business and psychology and people. And he's going to tell us how to sell or get better at sales. It didn't make a lot of sense. And so I found very quickly that the sales team that I was tasked to manage and lead found me to be, well, not someone that they cared to listen to because they were all veterans and they were all very good at what they do. And they were very resistant to the ideas that I would bring them. I found out, of course, later that some of that was, of course, their unwillingness to want to grow, although all of them succeeded at growing later on down the line. What really I needed to focus on was not trying to change them. What I really needed to focus on was changing myself as a leader and my approach to them as veteran salespeople, as veteran technicians in the field, and work with them a little bit differently to help lead them towards success. It took me years to figure out this lesson, and so I'm going to try to unpack a few lessons that I learned along the way in just a few minutes on this video on how do you coach veteran salespeople. Maybe people in positions that they do something better than you, they've done it longer than you, they've done it in other places longer than you, and no matter what they're doing, they are very successful at what they do. This seems to be a very difficult person to coach or to lead to growth because they've had a proven track record of being successful already. What could you possibly do to teach me something that I don't already know? And here's what happens so often. You start working with somebody and you give him, who's a veteran, and you give them some ideas, and they sort of sit there and they nod their head like this. And in their minds, they're thinking to themselves, who do you think you are? I mean, you hot stuff. You think you came in here to figure out all this stuff in a matter of days or weeks or however long you've been here. What on earth are you going to teach me that I don't already know? Or you give them an idea and they think to themselves, yeah, great, but yeah, we tried that before. I've done that before. That's not going to work. They have these deep instincts, these deep roots, and they're successful. So they sort of sit there going, what do you have to offer me? And let's be honest, they're kind of right. If they're already successful veterans at what they do, maybe there's areas of growth. Almost certainly there's areas that they could grow and improve in. We all could. But at the thing they're good at it for a reason. So how do we coach this person when we're coming into a situation where they're veterans at what they do, and we are maybe an outsider, a newcomer, or just someone that they may not see as an authority figure or someone who has excelled at something beyond where they are? How do you coach this person? Right off the bat, I want to talk about 3 leadership principles and ideas that I have found to be very, very helpful to remember when coaching a veteran. The number one thing is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Period. Number 2, if you want people to succeed, then you have to celebrate people's success. And number three, speak to people in the language that they understand. Let's unpack all that real quickly. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You have to develop a caring relationship, which we're going to talk is the foundation of coaching someone who's a veteran at something. Number two, if you want someone to be successful, celebrate their success. So whatever they're already good at doing, you can actually become resentful of that. It's very easy to become resentful of that as a leader. And there's all kinds of reasons why. I found myself very early in my career finding myself to be a little resentful of the veteran salespeople who were running circles around me in sales. And I found myself trying to buck up and be a great salesman to prove to them that I can also be a great salesman. Just watch me. The reality was, I was a fine salesman, and so were they. And we all had our strengths on the sales floor. But with time and maturity, I learned that if I wanted them to succeed at what they were doing, the best way to do it wasn't to try and prove them as less adequate than I was or incapable of what I could achieve and what I could do. Instead, it was celebrating what they already did well. And the more that I did that, the more of that kind of behavior they wanted to do. And of course, the third thing I said was speak to people in a language they understand. And I don't mean if you speak English, speak English. Of course, obviously, speak in your native tongue that you understand. But what I mean by that is something a little bit deeper. If someone, especially who's been around the block for a few years, speaks better in the language of let me do the thing, try the thing, very kinetic learners, and don't lecture me, then make your lectures really, really short and give them the freedom to go do the thing however they do it. If someone needs it to be written down, they need a plan written down, they need it itemized, again, make your lecture very short, but make sure you have a plan written down and give it to them. In my experience, veteran salespeople, veteran people in their field have spent a lifetime becoming successful at what they do, and they found a way to learn how to do it that's their way to learn how to do it. You can leverage that lesson of learning how they do it by observing what they do and how they learn and speaking to them in the way they learn best. If you can translate whatever it is you want to teach them, whatever it is you want them to grow in, into the language, into the method of learning that they do best, you're far more likely to be successful at training someone who may be an old dog but needs to learn some new tricks. So let's translate some of these leadership principles into some actions on ways that you can engage with those veteran salespeople or veteran people in your company in a very practical way. The first thing I would say to do is spend time developing a caring relationship. Remember the first principle I gave you, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you come in fast and hot and you tell these veterans they ought to do this, they ought to do that, change this, change that, we have this big new change coming along the way, it's time for you to learn, they're probably thinking to themselves, yep, here comes the young buck, the young ideas, the new energy. It's not going to work. It's never worked, right? We've seen it, we've seen this 100 times. They're not interested in whatever it is you have to sell them or make them sell until they really feel that you care about them as a person. So just spend time developing a relationship with them. When you have coaching moments, which I encourage you to have coaching times with your team, that's intentional one-on-one time with each person on your team. In that time with your veteran, just spend time getting to know them. Makes them feel good to come into the boss's office or go get a cup of coffee or something. And you know what? We're not talking about growth. We're not talking about development. We're talking about how those Cowboys played over the weekend. How about that? Wasn't that awesome? That's my team. I love those guys. Or maybe you just sit down and you talk about how, the husband and the kids are doing and hear how things are in the family and just spend 20, 30 minutes developing a caring relationship. I cannot overstate this enough. Spend time developing a relationship with these vets because the more you care about them, and genuinely so, the more they feel that and will be receptive to growth opportunities when it comes time to do that. Number two is that instead of pointing out all of their weaknesses, which I'm sure will identify pretty early, they need to do better at this and they need to do better at that. Spend time playing support to their weaknesses, not just pointing them out. Play support to their weaknesses. This is true of almost anybody, but especially people who have been at a company or have an established track record. They might actually be hyper aware of the things that they're not good at. Maybe they're not great with technology and they're really aware of this, but what they are good at is working with people, and they're very good at interfacing with people. The best thing you can do for them is to let them do what they're already gifted at doing, and that's interface with people. We'll get to the technology, but before we start trying to train someone who's not gifted at technology on using technology, as a sales manager and a leader, play support for them. Get involved in the sale when the technology comes up and be there as the tech support and let them run the sale. They're going to see you now as an asset, a helper, someone who really is there, who is vested in their success by making them look good. They don't want to look bad in front of a customer, so the last thing they want to do is look like a bumbling fool with technology. Come in, play support. Instead of pointing out the weaknesses, play support to those weaknesses. By the way, this helps to develop the caring relationship we talked about a second ago, and it helps build a foundation that you are allies working together, playing each other's strengths, especially on the sales floor in front of customers. The third thing is when it comes time to actually help them grow. A lot of times I find with those veteran salespeople that a gentle prod is much more effective than a major push. A gentle prod in the right direction is all they often need in order to know that they need to grow or change in some way. It doesn't have to be huge. So sometimes with some of my veteran salespeople, I just have to give them a look and they know, okay, yeah, I could have done better on that sale and follow through. Or I know I shouldn't have ordered it without getting a commitment. I get it. You don't have to lecture them. You don't have to beat them over the head. You don't have to go over the policies that, frankly, they've seen for years and years. You might need to do that with new people who've only been there for a year, maybe two or three, and don't know those things inside and out. But for that veteran who's been around the block 100 times, a gentle prod in the right direction is far more effective than a major push and upheaval and pulling them aside and saying, all right, now we've got to do a post-mortem on that sale that didn't go through and da-da-da-da-da. They don't need the lecture. They want to be treated with respect like the professional that they are. So just give them a gentle nod, a push, speak to them in the language they understand so that they understand, when I make a mistake or I could grow a little more here or there, I just need a gentle push, a gentle prod, instead of a major push in the right direction. Last thing is this. Above all, remember that everybody on staff, especially veterans and especially those who are gifted at what they do, everybody wants to feel loved and appreciated. It's a human need. It's not even just a human want. Did you hear what I said? It's a human need to feel loved and appreciated, even in our workplaces, sometimes especially in our workplaces. And very often, when you come into a situation where you're going to coach somebody who's been doing this for a very long time, they are the ones who really, really want and need that appreciation and love. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, yeah, but don't they know that they're the top salesperson every month, that they're great at what they do? Of course they make the big sale because they're the top salesperson. Well, sure. But that doesn't negate the fact that they still want to feel appreciated for doing a great job. Very often, people who do great work, or who are their top performers in a company or organization, often go home wondering, am I really doing a great job still? Am I still effective? Am I still top dog? Am I still doing good enough? All these inadequacies roll around in all of our heads, especially those who are high performers or have been doing something a long time. And if they're feeling tired or dejected or worn out or burnt out, sometimes the cure that they need is when a leader comes along of any status or size and says, I appreciate you for what you're doing, and gets specific about the things that they see them doing well. Everybody wants to feel loved and appreciated, even your veteran salespeople, especially them. All right, so there you go. A few thoughts and ideas on how you can coach veteran salespeople or leaders in your company especially when you come into a situation where they may have more experience or skill at something than you do. Here is your takeaway for the week. Be intentional about having a one-on-one time with your veteran top dog salesperson. Spend time just having a good conversation, developing rapport and relationship. And one last little tidbit of advice. One of the greatest ways to help get them on your side and help push them towards growth is to ask their opinion on something. Instead of bringing them into the office to tell them what they should do to improve on something, tell them, "Hey, I got a question. You know, you're a top dog here, and you're really important to me, and I value your feedback. I have this idea in mind. What do you think? Give me your opinions." My gosh, they'll have plenty of them, and they've been waiting for you to ask this. And they can't wait to share it. And by the way, they are pretty good at what they do, so wouldn't you like some great educated feedback on your ideas? I know I would. So spend some time this week grabbing them, asking for their input on ideas, and before you know it, you'll find that they might just be on a fast track trajectory to growth that you couldn't believe otherwise. I hope this has been helpful for you. Good luck out there, everybody, and I'll see you next time.